If you're thinking about creating and selling your own online courses, then Kajabi is one of the best course creation platforms available. But maybe you aren't sure how it works or if it's really right for you. So in this tutorial, I'm going to walk through their course creation tools step by step so you can see exactly how it works and decide if Kajabi is the right platform for you. By the way, Wit and Wire subscribers can claim an extended 30-day trial not available on their website by visiting witandwire.com/Kajabi to get started. Kajabi is an all-in-one platform, which means that they offer everything that coaches and creators need to build their businesses all in one place. So in addition to selling online courses, you can sell coaching, digital products, and memberships, and you can build your website, create community, build email automations, and more, all right within Kajabi. Now, I don't think there's such a thing as one universal best tool for everyone. But after continuous testing, Kajabi has remained my top recommended all-in-one platform for years. And it's the tool of choice for many business owners in the Wit and Wire community. So I'm excited to log in and show you how it works. First, let's select your course type. In Kajabi, an online course is one type of product you can sell. And you can see different options in this menu, but we're going to stick with courses and I'll click Add New Course. This gives me two options to choose between, an evergreen course or a cohort course. Evergreen courses are self-paced and allow students to go through at their own pace, while cohort-based programs give a group of students the chance to go through an experience together. And it's often coupled with live sessions like coaching calls or workshops, as well as a community. It's noteworthy that this is a premium feature only available on certain Kajabi plans. And for today, I'm going to stick with an evergreen course, which allows students to move through lessons individually on their own schedule. Next, let's name your course. I'm going to build a demo of one of my existing programs called Course Builders, but if you don't already have a name selected, first, I want you to know that this is not permanent. You can easily change this name once you get into the full editor. And second, there isn't one universal best way to name a course. I think it comes down to your tone, your audience, and even your own personality. So while a straightforward name might work for one business, a more aspirational name or an identity-based name might work well for another. So although we'll put a pin in naming strategy, I just wanted you to know mostly that whatever decision you make here is easily changed later on in the full editor. This is also where you'll decide if you want to keep Kajabi's AI Content Assist on or turn it off. If you do keep it on, you'll need to fill out information in the description to give the AI a starting point. But transparently, I prefer against using this feature. Even if you do want to use AI to support your brainstorming and creation process, I think what will make your course stand out is your unique point of view and your personal experience, which I don't think can be captured well here. There can absolutely be exceptions, and maybe you keep it on just to see a rough framework of the outline Kajabi will create. But in my opinion, I don't necessarily think this is going to be the best tool for creators who are trying to create something proprietary, unique, and truly industry leading. So I'm going to keep that turned off. By the way, if you're looking for more strategic support on things like choosing the right course topic, outlining your curriculum, packaging and pricing, or launching your new offer, then you'll find more links and resources from Wit and Wire in the description, or you can visit witandwire.com/programs to learn more about how I work with online business owners. Next, let's customize your course branding. Here you can choose a primary and accent color for your course, but coming up, I'll bring you into the full editor so you can really see how much you can customize about your course layout. As a pro tip, if you click the colored icon, you can see I've actually saved my brand colors in the color picker, which you can do under your overall site settings in Kajabi, and I definitely recommend to save yourself a bit of time. Then you can add what's called a thumbnail image, which is the icon that represents your course in your buyer's course library and typically on the checkout page. So they give you recommended dimensions here, and you can choose a stock image or create a graphic in a tool like Canva. And I'm going to go ahead and upload a file from my computer. You can also skip this if you prefer to upload it later. And speaking of which, the last step in the onboarding is pricing your course, but I am going to circle back to this when we create our checkout page. So for now, I'm going to skip and we'll return back to pricing in a little bit. Now that our course has been added, you'll find it in the courses menu anytime. And we can now see a new submenu listed here along the top. So let's take a brief tour of the course editor. We've landed here on the Outline tab, where you can add sections called modules and individual lessons to your course. You can also customize the appearance of your course, which we'll get to shortly, and you can add offers or price points and track the number of customers who have enrolled. You can also create certificates, and notably, you can adjust the settings, which will look familiar from the onboarding flow. So this is where you can change the title, the thumbnail, and configure a few additional options. And one notable edit I like to make is turning off comments. If I want community engagement, I prefer to enable the full community access, but this is absolutely a personal choice and one you can make on a per course basis. Let's go ahead and save those changes. And now let's head back to the outline to add sections called modules to our course curriculum. I'll start by clicking Add Content, where you can add new modules or individual lessons. So let's add a new module, and I'm going to call it Signature Outcome. And I tend to use all caps to differentiate the module names from lessons, but that's completely optional. Similarly, the description and image are optional, and I typically leave them blank, but I'll show you where these could appear coming up when we customize the course layout. Let's click Create Module to lock that in, and you can also rename modules like this default module by either clicking Edit or clicking right onto the text, and maybe I'll call this Welcome and click Save Module to lock in that change. As needed, I could continue to add individual modules, so let me go ahead and add a few more to our demo. You might notice that all modules are currently in draft mode, and they won't be published or visible to students until we switch them over to a published status. So I'm going to continue working in draft mode as we move to the next step, which is adding course lessons. You can add content here at the top, but I typically prefer to add content directly to a module. So this gives me the option to add a lesson, and I can give it a title, which you can change at any time. From here, I might click Add Content and add lessons individually to build out the section, or I can head to Add Content if I prefer to upload multiple videos in bulk. So any videos I upload here would each become an individual lesson in my course, and I can rename and reorganize them as needed. So let me go ahead and add a few additional lessons for our demo. You can use the drag and drop editor to rearrange lessons and modules anytime. And now we're ready to click into an individual lesson by clicking the title or the edit icon to go to the lesson editor, where we can talk about adding course videos. Like most other course creation platforms, Kajabi does not give you tools to record and edit your videos. Instead, you'll use external tools, and I have a resource called the Video Toolkit linked in the description if you're curious about my recommendations. So once you have your videos created, that's when you can come to Kajabi to click Video and upload your file, which you've created elsewhere. So you don't have to add videos to every lesson. You might choose some that are video free or some that just use audio files. But I would say video is the most common lesson type. So I'm going to click Select a File to upload something from my computer. Once my video has processed, I do have the option to set a thumbnail, which is the still image that people see before they hit play. You can either use a current frame as a thumbnail, or you can select your own image. And by the way, both of these are totally optional, and I would consider them extra credit. But I do like to add an image, so let me add one from my computer. You'll see how that looks in a preview coming up shortly. But while we're still in the lesson editor, I want to scroll down a bit further to the text editor to talk about adding course workbooks and resources. I like to add text below videos, and I include links to Google Docs since that's my preferred format for workbooks. But if you prefer to upload something downloadable like a PDF, then you can add files here and grab them from your computer. So let me grab an example. This happens to be the free resource I mentioned earlier, the Video Toolkit, which you'll find linked in the description, and you can add additional files as needed. Lastly, if I scroll down to the bottom, you have the option to add automations to this lesson. And although I think this is intermediate and not likely something you'll use for every lesson, this gives you the option to decide if a lesson is complete should a follow-up action occur, like sending a student an email might be one example. I'm going to leave that as is for now. And for the sake of our example, I am going to publish this lesson so we can see it in preview mode. So what I'm going to do is click save to lock in those changes. And I'm going to head back to the course editor using the breadcrumbs here at the top. So I'll click on my course name, and this brings us back to our outline where I've already gone ahead and published the lessons and modules, even though they aren't complete. That way we can move on to our next step, which is customizing your course layout. This is where you customize how your course appears to students. But what a lot of new Kajabi users don't realize is that the default template, which is called Premiere, is not your only option. So what I want to do is show you a preview of what this looks like, and then I'll show you the alternative. In Premiere, the course overview page reads like a list of all the modules with your individual lessons. And if I click into our demo lesson, you can see what I think of as a grid layout with the lesson video on the top left, then the lessons in this module on the right, and then we see the text below the title, as well as any downloads in the right. I think this layout is okay, but the biggest issue I have with Premiere is the fact that I can't easily see the lessons in other modules. I, as a student, have to figure out that I need to use these breadcrumbs to click backwards, maybe into the current module that I'm working on, the full list of all the modules, or the original course overview page. I think this is perfectly fine, but if you ask me, their alternative called Momentum offers a better student experience. So let's head back to the admin dashboard and take a look under Install Template. You can see that there are technically 7 options here, and you can upload custom templates as well, but they're all either built on the backbone of Premiere or Kajabi's second template, Momentum. So let's click Momentum and install, and this won't go live until I publish it. So if you're switching themes on an active course, just know that what we're doing is actually happening behind the scenes, and it won't activate until I choose to do so. So Premiere is still active, but now we have Momentum under the installed templates, and I'll show you a preview of what it looks like. And if I wanted to take this live, I would have to activate it here. So let's go ahead and preview Momentum to see the difference. Now you can see what I would call a more classic course layout with a sidebar showing the modules and individual lessons. And then when you click into our demo lesson, you can see the video at the top, text beneath, and you can see the downloads listed here. It's not that one layout is better or worse, but in my experience, I find as a learner that I prefer Momentum, but I can definitely see use cases where Premiere is the better option. You can customize the fonts and colors in both templates, so I'm going to customize Momentum as an example. Along the left, you can see a section editor as well as some universal settings for this course. And what's nice about Kajabi is because it's an all-in-one platform, this page editing experience is universal across your course, your website pages, and even your emails. So this will start to look really familiar and make Kajabi feel intuitive the more you use the platform. Now, my recommendation is to start with settings, where you can choose a favicon, which is the small icon that appears in the browser tab, as well as typography to match your brand, and in particular, the color scheme. If you do nothing else in this area of the editor, I think setting a color scheme will really take your course from looking kind of generic to really matching your brand's look and feel. So I might update my primary, accent, and sidebar colors to match the 3 colors that I've saved in my color picker. And then I'll need to click Save to lock that in. And when the page refreshes, and if I hide this menu, immediately this looks far more on brand for Wit and Wire, even if I did nothing else. So that small step goes a long way. Now let's bring back the sidebar. And if I go back, you can take your time on this, and then we'll head over to sections where you might go through these individually to customize the way that this page looks. The alternate option is if I hide this, you can click directly into an area to edit it. For example, I probably don't want to keep this placeholder text, so I might replace it with a simple welcome message or maybe a note on how to contact us, and I'll just abbreviate here if students get stuck. Let's also bring back this menu, and you can head back to see the section settings, of which there may not be very many, but this is also where you can add blocks to certain sections. So if I did want to include or remove the text block, I could add other blocks. There's not a ton, but it's good to know that you can customize what appears in this dashboard area. And I would recommend just spending a little time going through these options. In particular, I might check out the sidebar, which is over here. Again, just to replace anywhere that you see placeholder text. So you don't have to keep the card and the image. You can decide to hide or delete these. You can always add blocks later, but that would be my main tip, is just replace any placeholder text, and between the settings with your color scheme and these small updates, that'll make a huge difference. My other recommendation is to switch from the product page to post. Now, this is not intuitive, but in the context of the course layout editor, this refers to an individual lesson. So you won't need to go to settings because we've already set the color scheme. This is universal for the entire course and all of its pages. But we do want to take a quick look at some of the sections. You may not need to do anything here whatsoever, but you might decide that you don't like a completion message and maybe you want to change the language, or maybe you do or don't want to turn on auto advance. These are all very intermediate settings, and I'll just hide this so you can see what this looks like. And even if you don't make any of these optional tweaks, the changes you've already made to the product page and the overall course settings will go a long way. Now let's head back to the admin dashboard. And if you liked those changes, you'll want to just make sure that you activate the template that you customized for the course that we're working on. Next, let's set your course price. To do that, I'll head to the Offers tab, and you can think of an offer as a price point for one product or a bundle of products. So let's add a new offer. And to keep things simple, if I'm just selling one product, I usually make the offer match the same name. So that's what I'm going to do today. If I were creating a bundle, then you might want to have a name for that particular bundle or promotion. I'm going to click Next, and here I'll decide which type of pricing plan I'm charging. So in the dropdown, you can see that we have a one-time payment, but we also have payment plans and subscriptions. The difference is that a subscription will continue indefinitely until canceled, while a payment plan has a set number of payments. So let's say we go with a one-time payment, and let's say, for example, this is not the price of the course, but as a demo, let's set the price point at $1,000. You'll also select a payment provider, and I use Kajabi payments to process through the Kajabi platform. And I might also add additional payment options like Apple Pay and Google Pay. But this is up to you and may also depend on your country, so you may need to read the fine print from Kajabi's Help Center if needed. Now I am going to click Next, and this is where you can customize just a few things like the button color, and maybe I don't see the color picker here, so I might need to just put in my own hex code. And I am not going to get into which checkout fields and service agreement to include because this gets a little bit into legal advice and I am certainly not a lawyer. But what I can say is that your business almost certainly would benefit from having terms and conditions and other legal protections. So that's certainly something that I would look into, and I'll put a few recommended resources in the description. Let's click Save and Finish. And this brings us to the offer editing page. But interestingly, we're no longer in the product dropdown. We've been brought over to the sales menu under offers. So one interesting thing about Kajabi is that certain things are linked, like the product, which is the course, is linked to an offer, which is really a checkout page. So that's why you've jumped around a little bit. You can also create offers directly from this menu, but hopefully that distinction makes sense. What I'm going to do is go to the pricing tab. And here you can actually add another price point if needed. For example, let's say I also have a payment plan. Now I might add a payment amount with a number of payments and click Save. So this would create two options on the same checkout page. I'm going to show you what that looks like momentarily. For now, I'll just head back to details to show that we have the offer title, the product or products that are included, and I would recommend looking through the rest of these settings to see if there's anything else you need to change, like where you want people to land post-purchase, and do you want to send them a custom email or add them to an email automation after their purchase is complete. Now, the final step in this process is customizing the checkout page. From your offer page, you'll click Edit Checkout. Now you'll notice the page editor on the left looks familiar because, as we mentioned before, this editor is universal across all features in Kajabi, which makes it really easy to start picking up and using the more you get into the platform. So I recommend starting under settings, but you might find that your style guide already matches your branding as mine does here. So this will just depend on what you've already built in your Kajabi site. And if needed, you can spend a bit of time here customizing your fonts and colors to match your brand. Then if I head back to the sections menu, I'm actually going to zoom out a little bit so you can see the full page. And we have the checkout block here on the side, and then we have an image and header here on the left. Now in this menu, you can see the option to show or hide a header, and mine happens to be hidden, though you could scroll down to the desktop and mobile layouts to show it if you preferred to see it at the top, totally up to you. And you can also click into the checkout block to make some customizations. So here you'll decide how wide it should be. And you can also decide if you want to add any additional blocks. So for example, right now I can see we have this text block and we have this image block, which you may choose to keep or not keep. If I head back, you'll see those two are listed here. So the checkout block is listed on the right side, but then for the blocks, you can rearrange, edit, or remove. And I think one good example of what I might add could be a feature block. So if I add a feature, this could give me the option to add something like a testimonial with their name and their testimonial image. So you can customize that to your liking. It's optional, but you can see that just by adding different blocks, as well as rearranging, reordering, adding, in addition to this text, you could add a bit of a quick description here. And there are really endless options to customize this checkout page. I don't think you need a ton. My maybe big picture recommendation for today would be to include perhaps some kind of image here that represents the product. You might choose to put it above or below the text by using the drag and drop feature. And I would include a quick pitch for the product. I do like to include a testimonial or two and maybe some features, but this likely depends on what you're selling, what's included, and just your personal preference. So once you're happy with it, you'll click Save to lock in those changes. And you can use this back arrow to head to the offer settings, which you can also make edits to at any time. As a bonus tip, I also wanted to mention your sales page. Right now, I'm looking at the landing pages section of the website, and this is where you can create what's called your sales page, which gives information about your course and leads to the checkout page we just created. So to do that, you can create a new landing page from scratch, or you might duplicate a past template. And in my case, I just built a quick demo that I can show you. And when I head into Customize, once again, this page editor on the left will look quite familiar. The main difference is that now we're building out more of a full page with more details about the course. And to share one example of a section I've included, we have a hero section here. And if I click hero, you can see it has two blocks. We have the block on the left with the text and the button. And then we have a placeholder for an image that I could add on the right. So if I were building out this page, I would spend time adding in new sections, and you can actually see when I click Add Section, Kajabi has quite a few sections that they have pre-arranged. For example, if I click Hero with Image, you can see this is the exact layout I've used at the top. I've just customized it a bit and changed the background color. You can also see options like a 3-feature column, which can be used to talk about different features of course, or it might also be used for something like testimonials. And you can spend your time scrolling through to see other options, some of which might suit your sales page, but others might be a better fit for other website pages. One interesting option is the pricing option, where you can see the option to include just one block or what's called pricing cards, which puts a side-by-side comparison. So if you do have, let's say, a pay in full option as well as a payment plan, then pricing cards or having a couple of options could be a good addition to your page. But I would recommend spending some good time on this page, or if you are looking for more guidance on the strategy behind a sales page, then that's something I cover more in depth in Wit and Wire's programs. As you start to make sales, you can also analyze your metrics. Right now, I'm working out of a demo site, but if I had sales in this account, you could head to analytics and I'm looking at the overview to see my top line metrics, or I could dive deeper into reports to see more information about my latest purchases. And I can also do things like change the time frame or compare it to past periods. So as your business grows and as you start to make sales, this is definitely an important area that you'll want to keep an eye on. Overall, I think Kajabi is a great choice for business owners who value simplicity and the ease of managing everything in one place. As another advantage, because they're well established, Kajabi also has a wide ecosystem of third-party specialists and service providers. So whether you want a Kajabi website template, a virtual assistant, or someone to build your site, it's easy to find support as your business grows. That said, the downside of simplicity is constraint. And if you're looking for advanced site customizations or advanced automations, then Kajabi may not be able to do exactly what you want to do. It's still highly capable, but if you know you have a specific vision, then an all-in-one platform may not be right for you, and a specialist may be a better choice. But overall, I think Kajabi is an excellent fit if you want not only a course creation platform, but a true all-in-one home for your business. If you're curious to test it out, you can visit witandwire.com/Kajabi to unlock an exclusive extended 30-day trial. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Wit and Wire for more online course creation tutorials. And while you're here, here's another video I think you might enjoy.